doesn't pay.
I took over a big wine store in Southern California, and we had absentee owners. They owned 100% of the business. They never came around. When they came around, they ate free food and they drank free wine and they did all kinds of nonsense. And so when I did the deal, I told the owners that 25% of the business was going to go to the employees that work there, because I'm not going to work at the wine store every day. I wanted the employees that work there to really be managing partners. I wanted them to feel like owners. And the guy said to me, well, you're going to give away 25% of the business? And I said, yeah. Owning 75% of something that has stability, very low turnover, very happy partners, very happy employees, and we're making money is a lot better than owning 100% of terrible sales, low margins, constant issues. And so when I look at valuations, I always think to myself, in some businesses, it's better to have partners, particularly ones that are on the ground fighting for you every day. Doesn't always work out, but I like it when managers and certain employees have equity in the business. It takes some of the burden off of me. It allows me to have investments in more businesses than 10 or 20, because essentially, I'm their financing partner, or I'm their mentor, or I'm a minority partner. But it really gives them an opportunity to have success as well, and it makes my life a lot easier.
All right, good evening, gentlemen and ladies. Thank you for joining today's webinar. I'd like to welcome everyone who is here. Thank you for making our time to be at today's event. All right, we are already 10 minutes behind schedule, and we've received tons of questions. So we are just going to dive right into the meat of the day. Today we are discussing from employee to partners, from employee to partner, how to nurture and retain great employees, how to nurture and retain great talent. From employee to partner, how to nurture and retain great talent. Today we will have someone who I consider a financial strategist, a public speaker, an organizational development expert. Some know him as a pastor because he is an associate pastor in the Elevation Church. He's had extensive work experience and exposure, starting with the Big Four consulting firms. And today he is also one of the key players in building this fast-growing religious body called the Elevation Church. So he's garnered his experience. He understands the people business, right? He knows the ins and outs of people, and having worked through people in their hundreds and thousands, I think he reserves the right, and he has the credibility to speak on this topic. So we have a lot of questions that you have sent in the course of your registration. So we're just going to be throwing those questions to him. He may not have time to do a formal presentation. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to give him time to do an introduction, just share opening thoughts, and then I will start throwing questions at him. At some point in this presentation, I will allow you to ask your live questions. I'll allow you to ask your live questions. I don't know whether you have the chat space. Yeah, the chat room is open. All right, so you can ask questions. All right, so please feel free to, when you have any question, you can raise your hands and we'll unmute you. At some point, if we have that luxury or that liberty, we will have a deliberation, right? Please, Chinwendo, please, can you mute? Okay, don't worry. I think we can mute you from this end. But please, if your microphone is on, you can mute it so that you don't disturb others. We have a lot to do, but all right, Great. So I'll be bringing up our speaker for this evening. Like I said, most of you know him as Pastor Tunji. Some of us call him TJ, but it's okay. Whatever nomenclature you've deemed necessary. The most important thing is pay attention to what he has to say. But at some point, like I said, I would like us to have more like a Congress. Some people speak from the employee point of view. Some people will speak from the employer point of view. And let's see if we can collate those suggestions to build a case for turning employees to partners. All right, TJ, thank you so much for joining us. You have the floor, sir.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having me, Peter. To you and to the management team at PLLI. Thank you very much for having me this evening. And I also want to thank everybody who's taking the time to join this evening. To be a part of this session, whatever part of the world you're joining from, I want to say welcome to you. So this evening, I'm going to speak, right, not as an HR practitioner, but I'm going to speak as I'm going to speak generally as a leader of an organization, right? And I'm going to bring my perspective from that point of view, because it is not too difficult, to find different HR models or different HR consultants, who can tell you how to define and to design very effective people management systems, right? But I am going to try and speak a lot more from my journey in my own career, and also as a leader of a big organization, right? That's what I'm going to speak to. And so our topic this evening is from employee to partner. And I find that a very interesting subject to speak to, because at the heart of every organization, irrespective of the nature of the business, all right, is managing people. What is common to all organizations, right? Whether you're into products or you're into services or you're into whatever it is that you are into, right? What is common to all organizations is that we achieve our organizational objectives through people, okay? Whether we're selling products or we're creating products, right? Or we're managing services, offering services to other organizations, right? Everything that we do, every vision, every strategy that the organization has is executed through people. No matter how sophisticated your systems might be, no matter how great or significant, the pot of investment and capital that you have may be, you need people to move those things forward. So at the heart of every organization is people, okay? And you see, what happens is that irrespective of the nature of the organization that you're running, right, whether it is a new organization or an old organization or a small organization or a big organization, right? People do matter, right? And so what we're speaking to this evening basically is, how do we make sure that the people who work with us in our organizations, right? I believe this evening that I am speaking to people who are predominantly leaders of organizations, right? So what we're speaking to is asking ourselves, how do we make sure, what do we need to do, all right, to ensure that the people who work with us, right, they work with us as people who are not just people who are looking for what to eat, from the organization, but as people who have the highest interest, right, of the organization at heart, because that is what you want, right? You can have different categories of organizations. The people who come, to work in an organization just to earn a living. Those people will do the barest minimum, right, just to get their pay and to go, right? But there are other people, a smaller percentage of people who work with an organization who after a while, right, engage the organization as something that they have a stake in. Now, those kind of people are the ones who will grow the extra level. They're the ones who will exercise independence of thought. They're the ones who will exercise, independence of vision, who just sort of see your organization as their own, right? And the things that we can do, all right, to move people from being just regular employees to becoming stakeholders and partners in the organization. That's all the things that I want to talk about this evening, right? So the first thing is this, right? You want to understand that in having people work for an organization. If you want to move them from employees to partners, right? You have to move as a leader from hiring their hands to touching their hearts. Yeah. So when you hire their hands, is you're just paying me and I'm engaging you to render the skills that I have as a human being. So my first discipline is accounting. Yeah. So as an accountant, right, if you an organization will engage with me, I mean I will engage with an organization as an organization that has access to just my hands, which is my skills, what I have been trained to do, right? But my organization and my leaders, right, have to engage with me differently on an emotional level for me to become invested from a heart point of view, right? That is the first thing that everybody must learn to do. That's number one. Number two is this, right? Let's speak about we ourselves as leaders and managers of organizations, right? We almost immediately and very quickly assume that everybody who is a senior person in an organization or everybody who starts an organization knows how to manage people in the world of work. And that is not correct, right? Everybody who wants to work with people successfully as themselves must acquire an understanding, must acquire the skills to manage people. Because managing people in the world of work is not just the same way that you manage your siblings, your friends, and all that. There are nuances to it, there are structures to it, there are skills to it, and there are things that you need to do to drive people to perform. There are things that you need to do to reward people. There are things that you need to do, right, to even punish or to deter bad behavior. All of those things, everybody needs to learn them in some way or the other, right? So some organizations, I remember that the first organization that I worked for, right? Once you begin to approach manager level, yeah, once you begin to get to a position where all you is that as a leader and manager of people, yeah, your technical capability as an accountant is less important to the organization, yeah, than your capacity to manage the clients of the organization and your capacity to manage the people who report to you. So the kind of trainings that you begin to get as a senior person begin to then focus more, right? Not just on developing your technical competence as an accountant, but for managing people and also for managing clients, because the organization realizes, right, that the future of the organization itself rests on the people that work. So the younger people, the junior people that have been committed into our own hands as middle level managers, if we do not treat them well, if we do not manage them well, if we do not develop them, right, then the organization knows that very quickly things are going to go back. All right. So that is also very important. Everybody who has leadership responsibility must learn, and understand, how to manage people. And it is not something that you do based on just intuition. You have to find a way to acquire formal knowledge of it. And when I say formal knowledge of it, I don't mean that everybody has to have a master's degree in human resources management. No, in this days, there are things and tools and knowledge that's been democratized that you can acquire everywhere. Right? So remember, I said that the first thing is that you must learn to work with people, hire their skills and touch their hearts. And then the second thing is you yourself, you need to understand, how to lead and to manage people. That is very crucial, right? And I think that is one area that those of us who are owners of medium sized businesses, right, who are working very hard at growing those businesses, right, we tend to focus a lot, right, on developing products, on building the business, acquiring the skills that surround those things, and then we leave HR, we leave people management to just intuition, right? And so you come to the office and you manage your accountant the same way that you manage your house help at home, right? And it doesn't exactly work that way. So that we must understand. Now, also, for us to take people, right, the position of being employees to the position of becoming partners in the organization, we need to find a way to make sure that people's individual goals and objectives in their own space and career, irrespective of the nature of the organization. All right, that there is some measure of alignment between what the organization is trying to do and what these people are trying to achieve in their own lives, right? So this is what I mean. The most basic need that human beings have is the need to be able to earn enough money to feed themselves, to provide accommodation for themselves, and to clothe themselves, right? That's the most basic, right? So the first alignment that they must see is that this organization has the capacity to be able to help me to achieve that objective. When they see that, right, all things being equal, they become a little bit more invested, right, in seeing the progress of the organization. Okay, that is so there must be some measure of alignment between where they are in their life, what they want to achieve with their life, and what the organization is offering them and what the organization. What will then happen is that someone begins to ask questions. Someone has been with you for 2 years, for 3 years, for 4 years, right? They begin to ask questions and say, where really is this organization going? And where am I going in my own life, right? Can I see a future? Can I see a connection there? So the person can see, they will stay with you and grow that organization, but if they cannot, right, they will then leave, right? So I remember personal example, and this is not a very great personal example, but I'm still going to use it anyway. So I remember about 8 or 10 years ago, I think about 10 years ago, about 10 years, more than 10 years ago, actually, right? There was someone who was starting a new organization in Lagos, Nigeria, yeah, and they had sort of invited me to come and consult for that organization as we were going through some regulatory process and review, yeah. So I spent 2 weeks consulting for the organization, right? And then at some point, they started talking to me, about coming to be employed by their organization. And I really wasn't looking to change my jobs and my job at that time. Yeah. I wasn't looking to change jobs, but I just wanted to go through the thrill, the thrill of going through the interview process, getting an offer letter, and seeing what it is that these guys, think I am worth and what they're putting on the table and all that. That's all I wanted, right? So I started a conversation with them. And I remember the guy was one of the guys, the most senior person who then interviewed me subsequently, right? Who was one of the promoters of the organization, who was even a foreigner, yeah. So the guy looked at me and said, "Look, Chidi, why do you want to leave, your current very structured, what looks like a well-paying job where you can see a future? I was working with an international organization at the time, and then why do you want to leave that and come and work in a startup?" Yeah. And I just sort of said something. I said, "Oh, I was just looking for fresh challenges and all that and all that and all that, right?" But you know what happened after that conversation, right? They didn't invite me back. Yeah, because I could see, even I could tell, right, as a manager of people, that there was no alignment, right, between what I wanted for myself and what they wanted from the organization. So even though I was a skilled and talented person who would have done what they were looking for very well, they made me an offer that was interesting. They knew, that it would only be short term and shortly. Okay. So that is also very, very important, right? Now, another thing that moves people, right, from being employees to partners, right, in your organization is also, how do you manage them? What do I mean by that, right? So in the season where we are in right now, in different parts of the world, right, things have become tougher from an economic point of view, right? In Nigeria, for example, inflation has gone crazy. The cost of living has gone so high. In other parts of the world, in the UK, the same thing is happening, and all of that, right? So even though the organization is perhaps maybe not making more money, yeah, but how am I as a leader demonstrating empathy to these people? All right, that helps them to know that I have their back, and that as long as things are okay, yeah, they will have a job here as long as they continue to make an increase. That is very, very important, right? So empathy is another thing that people see and they experience in organizations, right? That help them to say, this organization has my interest, and I'm also going to invest myself and pour my heart into my organization. So if you're working with someone, about up to I remember about 15 years ago, right? About 14 years ago, 13, 14 years ago. I went for a training and I sat down with my colleagues and we're speaking. I think at that time we're just becoming managers, I went for a new manager training and we had this very big argument, where I was saying, right, everybody comes to work, right? You don't have to be friends, just do your work and get away. Yeah. And one person said, no, 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 no. When people come to the office, you need to make sure, you need to sort of be invested in their well-being. And I was like, no, but we're paying the salary. Why will I be? Now I know that my position was extremely foolish. Yeah. And then maybe I realized just 6 months down the line that my position was not right. And I moved away from there. And I became the person who tries as much as possible, all right, to know you beyond the office, to know what is going on in your life. What are your own personal aspirations? What are your own, what do you want to do with yourself? What do you want to do with your career? And how does it align with the work that you're doing? All right. So if somebody comes to the office, to work for you and they have not eaten or they're struggling to pay their rent and you do not know anything about it in some way, right? That person is not going to give you the best of output. But if somebody comes to you and says, I lost my father 2 days ago, right? And you say, oh, I'm giving you I'm giving you a day, 2 days off. This is 20,000 or whatever amount of money that you have that you can afford to give them. Go and do this and go and do that and go and do this one. They feel a lot more connected to you than if you just manage them within the policies of the organization, which is I pay you a salary and you show up. All right. So that emotional intelligence, emotional connection that managers make in the lives of people, all right, sometimes draw them closer to the organization. It yields dividends, right, beyond just what you pay them and what you get out of it. I know that everything that I am saying, right? Somebody can say, "Oh, look, but I tried that." For some employees who are just very recalcitrant. I tried it with this person, tried with that person. They still left me, and this and that. I agree with you that there would always be exceptions to the rule, right? But what you must also understand is that these are time-tested principles, and the exception is not always the rule, right? Many more people respond to care, all right, beyond just work relationship than when you only interact with them in the world of work, just to work, right? And then, of course, how are we as leaders? How do our organizations also invest in people? What kind of investment are we making in them? When you make the right kind of investment in the welfare, the well-being, and the development of the people, when they are well empowered to do the things that they have hired them to do, right? Then you will begin to see them making investment around the organization beyond just employees, and they become stakeholders who are more invested in the organization. You develop them, you give them the opportunity, right, to flex, if you permit the use of that word, right? Develop them, give them the opportunity, to show you what they are capable of doing. Don't micromanage them. Another thing that helps, that works is this: what performance management thought process are you engaging? There is no reason why every employee in the same organization must be treated the same way. Everybody must be treated according to their contribution to the organization. And this is the reason. When we do not differentiate in how we deal with people and fix them, right? People who have the capacity to do more will not do more, because we feel that the person who is not doing as much as I am doing will be treated the same way. I will be treated the same way that person is being treated. So why must I go the extra mile? The people who are inherently ambitious, and irrespective of the size of your organization, right? They want to see themselves, in some way being recognized for the value that they bring into the organization. And so each person, each organization, irrespective of whether you have 2 staff or 20 staff or 200 staff, there has to be something, that throws up and helps the organization to be able to identify people who are doing well, that helps to showcase the people who are doing well, that helps to reward them for doing well, all right, and also communicate to other people that these are the people who are doing well. This is what doing well looks like, and I am encouraging you to aspire to be somebody who wants to do well as well. Okay, so Those are some of the things that I think we need to understand and we need to put in place and we need to think about when we're talking about taking people from being just ordinary, regular employees, all right, to stakeholders and to partners in the business, right? Of course, the video that we watched at the beginning talked about, giving people shares in the company so that they can feel a sense of ownership. Of course, that is a reward system, right? So if you have an organization that is big enough for you to be able to practice all those stock options and things like that give people a stake in the business, then it is fine. But even if your organization is not big enough to practice that just yet, yeah, you need to be able to communicate to people the way that you use your words, the way that you use, your reward system, so that they understand the fact that in this organization, right, I am somebody, I am worth something, and I am valuable to the organization. That is what will help them, right, to think about becoming much more than just all right. So I think I'm going to stop here right now. I mean, I saw that before people have sent like quite a number of them, all right. So I think there is some extra value in just sort of speaking specifically to the questions and the issues that people have, rather than me just continuing to talk and talk and talk. And I mean, I have a lot of things to say. If you want me to, I can continue to speak about this for the next 45 minutes, whatever time that we have left. But I think there is a lot of value in just sort of having a chat around, the questions that people have raised. So, and I really do hope that someone has learned one or two things, from some of the things that I've shared, and that you find it a little bit valuable. And if I haven't covered something that is in someone's heart, right, please make sure to ask the question about them. And of course, remember, I told you at the beginning that I was speaking not from the point of view of an HR practitioner, but from the point of view of an organizational leader. So thank you very much, Peter. I yield the floor to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We appreciate Mr. Tunji for this fantastic opening. He's pretty much touched a number of aspects of what we're dealing with today. Thank you very kindly. Like I said earlier, if you have any question that is not you had not sent in earlier, please feel free to drop it on the comment segment, or you can raise your hands and would give you permission to unmute and ask. But I would like to take some questions. I'll probably be taking them in batches of 3 or 4. So the first set of questions, somebody is asking, based on everything you have just said, and most importantly, of course, the introductory video clip also alluded to the fact that, there need to be some level of, whether you call it investment or some level of risk. You were making some analogy. You said at a point, the analogy of the person who lost his or her dad, that you said, well, if just giving the person a day or two, some days off and some cash to support whatever they are going to do, goes a long way to create that emotional connection. So someone is asking, how do I know the most likely people to invest funds in my business? How do I know the most likely employee to invest funds? The second question there is, how do you activate buying into the company vision, right? As a way of, because the less looked at place. Business owners most times don't consider the place, the power of the vision of the organization or the vision and mission. So this person is asking, how do I get employees to buy into the vision of my company? The third question is, what do you look out for during recruitment in order to get loyal staff? What do you look out for during the recruitment in order to get loyal staff? Let me put one more, because we have a lot of questions. Let me just add 2 more so that we will take them in larger batches. How do we motivate employees to market our services to new markets? And how do we get such kind of employees? So this person is bothered that the employees he or she has they don't get into marketing the services or the products to new markets. So he or she is asking, how do I attract such types of employees? The last in this batch of question is, at what point do you convert employees to partners? At what point do you convert employees to partners? Okay. All right. Let me allow you to take this ones.
All right, thank you very much. So the first one says, who are the most likely people to invest in, right? One of the things that I said earlier, and that everybody must learn to practice is the principle and the art of differentiation. Yeah. So you can never, you must never, right, treat everybody in your organization the same way. And what I mean by that is this, right? What I mean by that is this: people contribute to the results and the objectives of the organization in different ways, right? There are those who are low contributors, high contributors, medium level contributors, right? The people that you want to invest in the most, are the ones who are contributing the most to the success of the organization. That is number one, right? It has to be clear. That's number one. Number two is this, right? Everybody in the organization deserves some form of investment or the other. And what do I mean by investment, right? There are investments that help them to become better human beings or better skilled individuals, right? So there is that investment. There is emotional investment in them as individual human beings, just human beings that even if they are not working for you, right? They just meet them on the road, they're just your neighbors, there is a minimum level of investment of whatever it is, that must go into there for them to feel a sense of belonging to your organization, right? So what everybody must learn is to be able to recognize how to put people into different buckets. Yeah. Who are the people who are my high performing people? Yeah. Your high performing people, all right, get significant kinds of investments. Let me give you an example, a personal example in my career. I think about 8 or 10 years ago. Yeah, think about 8 years ago, right? I worked for an organization. And so one day on a Friday at about maybe 4:30, I think they deliberate to send that email close to the close of the CEO of the organization, the CEO for Africa, not the I was working in Nigeria at the time, not from the CEO of Nigeria, but from the CEO of Africa, saying that I had been recognized as one of the, I think maybe top 1% or top 5% performers in the organization in Africa. And because of this, I was being put into a training program, right? That was supposed to fast track and accelerate my career. Yeah. So listen to what happened there. The organization saw me as a valuable person. They told me that I was a valuable person, and they created an investment platform to help me to get better. As an effective Monday, there's going to be a training in it. That would have had a told that I was cream of the pack, and they are making an investment in it because they found it significant, right? As a good performer. It is the same thing that you need to understand, be able to do in your organization, right? So who are the people who deliver the most level of result, right? What do you need to do for them, all right, to help them to become better and be able to maintain consistency of performance? That's one. Number two is everybody also deserves some measure of investment of resources. And when I say investment of resources, not just increments in salary or bonuses or things like that. There is personal development, there's training, and all of that that is supposed to help them to get better and also to make them to be more loyal to them. So that is very important. The question was, who are the people that are most likely investing? So resources are finite, right? We don't have as much as we need to do everything we want to do. So we must allocate them. So you have to have a model that helps you to figure out who are the people who will deliver the most amount of results for the organization, and then you plow stuff into them, right? The second one says, second question is buy-in into the organization vision. So the first thing is this: the organization itself must have a vision that is clear. The organization must have a vision that is appealing, right? And then, of course, every organizational leader must be able to communicate and sell. You see, selling skills. They're selling to outsiders, trying to make them to buy what your organization is about, the product that you're all about. Is the same way that you must sell the idea of what this organization stands for, the idea of what this organization wants to do, the idea of what this organization is going to become. You must sell it to the people who work for you, and you must communicate it clearly. And it's not enough to just write it on a sheet of paper and paste it on the wall by the entrance, by your reception, and say this is the mission statement. No, 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 no. Is the meaning of the mission statement, and what contribution will a statement to come to pass, right? Then to see what is in it for them. So if I commit my time and my life to this organization, what am I going to become? Do you understand? That is how you drive the get down. Now, remember the people at different levels and stages in their life. What motivates a junior entry level person is not necessarily the same that motivates a middle level person. All right. So you need to be able to learn to speak to them at their own level and at their own status. All right. That is also very important. Okay. Someone is asking questions about recruitment of loyal staff, right? I hope I got that third one correctly, right? So how do you recruit loyal staff? Is the truth is this. The different recruitment methodologies, right, and recruitment styles and questions and things that you ask them, right? When you are taking people through a recruitment process, you want to spend a lot of time listening to them and observing them, okay? And after you have brought them in, yeah, what you also want to do is to make sure that there is a probationary period, right? You want to be clear in your heart. What I find is most of the time is an issue with recruitment is this, right? We create a job description and we throw it out and people apply, yeah? But you are not clear in yourself. You're not clear in your heart, right? The picture of the kind of person that you are looking for, you know, who you need to do this job. Just looking at where I'm just looking at so if I'm not clear on what I'm looking for, I'm just going to take anything. So you must be clear in your mind. What is the profile of the person that would perform on the job that I want? And how do I gather enough information during the interview and the recruitment? Yeah. The one mistake that many people make is this, is that we attempt to recruit for every single role the same way by sitting in front of people and asking them a question. And saying, I want you to come, I am going to give you something to do. When you do it, then test. Those are some of the things that attributes of people. Somebody can't know this. You need to develop the skills and the capabilities they're looking for and how to identify it. So the other question is, someone says sound is not very good. Is that true? Is that for everybody or just for a few people? That's the first time I'm saying this, and we've been on for almost an hour. Peter, can you hear me clearly? Can other people hear me clearly?
The sound went cracky at a point.
Okay,
but
so
I think it's
now?
It's
okay, so it is better now. Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. So the next question is how to motivate employees to perform. Yeah. How to motivate employees to perform. So the theory of motivation, yeah, is motivation. Motivation is something that is scientific. It is emotional as well, and everybody needs to understand and understand how to how to connect with people to stimulate them. You know, motivation is stimulating someone to do something, right? So you motivate people either by helping them to understand the reward, what's in it for them. You help them to understand the risk of not achieving the objective, all right? And you, of course, but at the heart of all of those things is clear communication. So first, to motivate someone, you need to tell them what you want them to do. It has to be clear. It starts with communication, breaking goals and objectives down, breaking down tasks. what is the outcome? What does success look like? You need to be able to define it for the person, right? And then, of course, you need to be able to define for them what is the benefit of achieving what you're telling me to achieve, okay? And what is the downside of not achieving what you're asking me to achieve for both the organization and for myself, all right? These are the things that motivate. And of course, you also then need to understand that um, in the theory of motivation, right? Different things are motivated by what they want a bigger title. Title, they want money, but they also want a sense of advancement. So the person says, today, you have told me I am a senior sales associate, right? And you have told me at the end of this year that I have done very well. You have given me more money. But I want to see that I have gone from senior sales associate 1 to senior sales associate 2. And I want you to be able to demonstrate to me and tell me what I need to do to go from senior sales associate 2 to become a sales manager, because that is where I want to be. All right. So understanding as well, that there are different things that motivate people, and being able to build and harness and package those things into the reward system of the organization is also very crucial. Someone says, oh, look, well, I'm just a small organization of this thing that you're saying. They're for very big and well-structured organization. I hear you, I agree, but I also disagree. And the reason I say that I disagree is that there are different dimensions of these things. There is a way and a skill that bigger organizations will practice them, and there is a way and a skill that smaller organizations will practice them. Do not treat everybody the same as well, right? If somebody knows that if I do not, whether I do a lot of work, I do very little work, myself and the guy sitting next to me, we're going to earn $200 or $100 at the end of the month. Anyway, there is no incentive for me to want to go at the extra mile, all right? So again, there has to be a reward system in place for performance. Okay, so that is that about motivating people to communicate and of course reward them, right? I think there was a last question I missed about at what point do you begin to sorry, I missed that one. Please, if you have it, you can say it again, that would be great.
Yes.
We can also then take some other questions.
The last question said, at what point do you begin to convert an employee to a partner?
Oh, okay. So you begin to think about that at the point where people are beginning to demonstrate to you, yeah, that they have something valuable to offer to the organization. Once you begin to support, so let's assume that you employ 30 people on the same day, yeah, maybe on the same level to do the same thing in different departments. Once you begin to see someone after 1 month, after 2 months, taking initiative, taking ownership, right, then you want to begin to focus a little bit more on that person and helping them to draw them in further in, to the organization, right? It doesn't mean that you're not going to do anything with the other people, but it is that you will invest more of your energy in the person who is showing promise. So at the point where you begin to see promise in someone, at the point where you begin to see extra value beyond what you are paying for, you know that you have each jackpot, right? And this person, you want to retain them and you want to begin to invest in them, right? That's one category, of trying to convert them. Another category is this, right? Understanding the fact that most times it always costs an organization more to replace someone that has left than to retain a good person in the organization. Yeah. So having that understanding, you want also to, from the beginning, begin to help people to understand that your organization is a place where they will stay. Because irrespective of how bad the economy may look, yeah, good people always have a choice. Yeah, good people always have a choice. So you want them to understand that your own organization is a place that is valuable for them to stay. And so right from the beginning, you have invested. Maybe because we do not quantify what it costs us, to hire people, the amount of time it takes us to train people, Yeah, we do not see the amount of investment and the potential loss if those people were to leave. That's why sometimes we don't make the effort to let them know that we value them and want them to be a part of the future of the organization. So once you begin to see someone with showing promise and all of that, then you begin to make the efforts to sort of keep them, retain them, help them to be a part of the future of the organization, right? So, Peter, I think those are my responses to the first set of questions that I have been asked. And I hope that someone is learning something from this organization, I mean, from this conversation that we're having this evening.
All right, thank you very much. I am picking a lot. And please, you can also react for the audience. You can react with your comments or your on the chat if you're picking something or if this is making a lot of sense. But I think I'm getting some clues here. So please, a bit of feedback. A few people typed on the chat that the volume on your side, it's a bit low, so you might need to project the voice more, sir. All right. So I'm going to read out another set of questions. So the first set of questions came from the ones people dropped while they were registering. So this set of questions are the ones people just dropped. So I'll just be interchanging them. This is from Shago SO. He said, how do you engage millennials who are mostly non-conformist? It's a very interesting question. How do you engage millennials who are mostly non-conformist? That's a $1 million, $1 million naira question. All right. I have two questions from Edafe. Edafe says, as a startup, what would be your advice? What would you advise business owners regarding policies and structures that encourage moving the ordinary employee to a business partner? I guess, if I'm not mistaken, Edafe is asking, okay, right. So, so Edafe is asking, what would you advise the person who is a small business owner in terms of coming up with policies that address how to move an employee to a partner, because most organizations don't have that. Then his second question is taking organizational structures into consideration. Can you recommend a few of the policies to start with? Edafe is still on this policies matter. And it's a very important question. 97% of the HR policies, I stand to be corrected. I think 99% of, I think 99.7% of HR policies that exist today doesn't have that clause of moving an employee to a partner. So Edafe is asking a very significant question. Now that you are bringing this new narrative, this new orientation, how do we integrate it into the policy? And the unfortunate part of it is that every HR policy is copied and pasted and adapted and adopted. So HR policies are really not written again. They just copy, paste, take out some things. So it's really not, it's not adaptive any longer. So I hope you got that question. I have another question from Innocent Abba. Innocent Abba is asking, how do I manage my staff more efficiently when the organization have not been able to respond to pertinent requests I have made, such as requests for more staff, because we are short-staffed, sponsor staff appreciation, and provide all necessary working tools. Innocent Abba is possibly a man on a management team, is a manager in an organization, and he's hearing all of this and he's saying, how do I do this? Because I stand in the gap between the management and the people. So I've made requests, we are short-staffed. Perhaps the few people he has working with him are already burnt out, and all of these things you are saying doesn't seem to be working. And he's saying, how do I implement when the management doesn't pay attention to what I'm saying? The last question I would take from the questions dropped on the chat is coming from Andy Chuku. And Andy Chuku is asking, how do you get your employees to think and come up with good ideas? All right, let me allow you delve into this. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. So let's answer the last question first, right? How do you get your employees to come up with good ideas, right? There are frameworks and processes for triggering creativity that everybody can deploy, right? When you want people to come up with good ideas, right? The first thing you want to do is to help them to understand what you need, what are the ideas for. That's number one. Number two, you also want to demonstrate to them that whatever ideas they bring to the table are valuable. Now, I've seen organizations and leaders before who have told people to go and come up with ideas and all of that. And every single idea that they came up with, what those leaders did was to tell them why the ideas will not work, they rubbish the ideas, they didn't recognize the people who brought them. And so people just say, well, whatever idea I bring, nobody's going to do anything with it anyway. So they then sort of do not engage anymore. They're just behaving like robots who are doing the only things that they have been told to do, right? So you must help them to understand that you value the ideas, right? They're asking them to be. And of course, you must implement some of those ideas, not all of them, right? You must implement so they see the fact that these things are being implemented. And of course, you want to reward people for them, right? Now, there are frameworks for generating ideas. So innovation is not just wild inspiration. There are frameworks for brainstorming, but you must also teach people at some level those things, right? You want to expose them to these principles, these processes of coming up with new ideas that make sense, right? The kind of questions to ask, the kind of processes to engage, and how people can bond together to do something. So those are some of the things that everybody needs to learn to do and help them to do. Okay, so that's a question about ideas, right? Innocent question about me. I'm caught in between the senior management and the people below me and all that, right? So the first thing you want to try and do is to clearly yourself, all right, as a middle level manager, right? Learn the skills for stakeholder management, okay? That helps you to speak to leadership. You must speak the language of leadership. We say there are people who, when they are trying to communicate the needs of the lower level of the organization to the senior level of leadership, right? We communicate like union leaders, and I've been there before, right? What I mean by union leader is, for union leaders, everything is about Aluta, is about the people who are behind us. You must do this, and no. The way to communicate to senior people is to demonstrate to them what is the benefit for the organization. What they want to see is what is the return on investment. If I hire 2 or 3 more people, right? What problems will they solve? Now will it add value to the organization? That's what you must communicate. You must communicate value, and you must also communicate risk. Help them to see the risk, okay, of not doing what we are requesting for, and help them to also see the reward and the benefit of it. Right? When they see that, and of course, you also yourself must also be able to ask yourself and say, look, does the organization really have the resources to invest in these things that we're asking them to invest in, right? If the organization has the resource, right, then you are able to then learn how to communicate to them in a way that triggers their interest in wanting to make the returns, right? And what you also want to do in managing and dealing with the people below you is you do not want to communicate and take a position of, I have done my own, the bosses are not doing anything, right? They are just bad people. No, what you want to do is to continue to manage them and engage them emotionally, such that you're helping them to maintain an interest in the welfare and the benefits of the organization, right? Selling them on the long-term view and position and benefits of sticking to the long haul, right? As opposed to just throwing the organization under the bus. So you want to learn to play that delicate balance, right? When you're caught in between senior management and of course the junior staff, right? So that's what I'm going to say about that. Now, that's it. The 2 questions around policies and things like that. Yeah, so policies are great. Policies are great because they create framework for managing things and making things for you to be able to do things in ways that are predictable, right? And so the first one of the policies that you must have, whether it's simple or it is complex or it's very deep, is you must have a policy that a performance management process or framework, right? And when I say performance management framework, it doesn't have to be anything extremely fanciful. It just basically says, how are we going to measure the value that people are adding to the organization, and how are we going to be able to reward them for it, right? Reward them, or train and develop for better performance. So performance management is interesting to have. Yeah. And then the second thing also is that you must have some sort of reward system in place. Yeah. Beyond just paying people salary, right? So you must have some sort of reward system that creates a vision of something they can look forward to, something extra. It could be an experience, actually, right? So it could be an experience, it could be bonus, it could be whatever it is, right? So a reward system that someone can say, if I were to bust my heart, right, and deliver this thing, it is guaranteed that I will get X, Y, Z, and it's communicated to them, right? That is also very, very important, right? Another thing is a learning and development, simply put, a training, system or process or policy that helps people that helps the organization to invest in people according to two things, according to their potentials and according to their deficiencies, right? So when people see that there is something like that helps them to get better, again, it helps them to become more invested in the organization. Do you understand? So those are some of the policies that you need to begin to think about. All right. There is a whole concept, called employee engagement, right? And employee engagement simply is, what do we do to people that put them in a position where they begin to invest more, on an emotional level than a rational level, that helps them to begin to think about taking independent action for the good of the organization. Those are some of the things that you also want to begin to do and to put in place. So everything in the organization is not just about work. All right. Do people have the right tools? Is the environment a little bit is it comfortable? Is it conducive for work? Right. When they come to the office, are they proud of the space that they are working in? If your organization can afford it, right? Those are some of the things that you need to put in place. So there is the environment of work. There is the nature of the work that you have given them to do. Is it meaningful? Are we giving a middle level manager? Are we giving them entry level kind of work to do? Are we giving qualified people, unskilled make kind of work to do, right? So those are the things that you need to be clear that the organization has and puts in place. And then helps us. Those are the things that people see that helps them to be more valuable and helps them to engage on that level. All right. Yeah. Okay, I think those are the questions that I remember, Peter. I hope those. And I think there was something about engaging millennials, right? Now, so there's a whole study, all kinds of theories and all of that about engaging millennials. And basically, what it is this, right? There are different kinds of people in the world of work. Yeah, based on the way that we have been raised up ourselves in the world of work, but it is all stimulated by the changes in culture and changes in the environment that we have. Yeah. The question that we should ask is this, right? You that wants to manage them, do you understand their culture? Or are you sticking to the culture that produced you yourself? Yeah. Let me give you an example from the world of parenting. The way I am raising my children is different from the way that I was raised. And the reason is this: the environment, the technological environment, the social environment, the political environment in which I was raised is different from the way in which my children are growing up. So if I insist that the only way that I will raise them is the way I was raised, there will be problem and mistake from the beginning. My question is, you and your organization, do you understand the nature of the people that are coming into the world of work right now, such that you have created or you defined your policies and your requirements and demands of them in a way that attracts them, stimulates them, and catches their interest? I think that's what I'm going to say in response to that question.
Wow, I think the last question you took is a full topic.
It is. It is that a lot of research papers and whatnot, about that particular conversation. So it's not something that you can exhaust, just talking to you in 5 minutes.
That question you asked, do you understand their culture, or are you sticking to the culture that produced you? And I think this is the major problem most startup businesses are having in Nigeria, especially when people leave some of the old existing organizations and they want to start a small business. They bring the burden of the organizational framework they are coming from and put on top of this small business. And especially if you have a business that engages millennials or Gen Zs, there are certain things you need to question. Must people come to office? There are certain things that you need to question, right? Especially you are working,
Yeah.
you are probably, most of the things that you are doing are intellectual property, and they have to stay a quarter of their life on traffic just to get to an office and mark register. There are things that business owners need to begin to consider. Now, I have another set of questions because our time is already running out, and it looks like the questions are still coming in. Please, I'm going to ask plenty this time around. This is from TK Facilities. TK Facilities says, okay, TK Facilities says, our technicians leave and it's always difficult to cultivate them to be the TK Facilities kind of technicians. How can we stop their leaving, and how can we develop them into our TK facility kind of person? So let me rephrase this one aspect of this question. I think you spoke to it in one of the responses you were giving, which is I think maybe you can give a guideline as to how people can develop their employee avatar. I think that is one of the questions they are asking. When somebody says, how do I know a loyal staff? How can people develop an avatar so that you can know this is our own kind of person the moment the person comes in for an interview? How do you know the person not to even interview? So I think you should speak to that. But the other question is, how can you satisfy an unsatisfied employee, irrespective of all you do in this economy, in this present economy? The other question is, when and how do you give query and fines? When and how do you give query and fines? Next question is, what should be the criteria for salary increment? The next question, how do you design an attractive work environment with high retention and low budgets? How do you design an attractive work environment with high retention and low budgets? Then the last question on this batch is, how do you work around maternity leaves for female workers, especially? How do you work around maternity leave for female workers, especially? All right, sir.
Okay, all right. I'm going to try and start with the last one, right? So I'm not absolutely clear what the issue is with maternity leave, right? Because if someone is pregnant, they have to go on maternity leave. It is a legal right, right? You can't do anything about it. The law says you give them maternity leave and all of that, So I'm assuming that what the person is saying is how do we manage business disruption that can potentially come from there, right? Now, you see, Christmas does not come by surprise. Everybody knows that Christmas Day is 25th of December. The same thing, maternity leave. No maternity leave comes by surprise. The only way it can come by surprise is maybe you have thought that the person will go off in 1 month's time, and then something happens, and they say, oh, the person now needs to have bed rest, and so they go off 1 month earlier, right? Now, what needs to happen is typically there is always a cost to the organization, and we must be realistic and open-minded enough, right, to recognize that. Yeah. So what you want to ask yourself is this. I mean, in this world where there is a lot more opportunities for temporary work, what you want to do is to say, look, at what point do I begin to engage a replacement for this person, a temporary cover? Not everybody who works in an organization must be a full-time staff of that organization. Yeah. So if you need to get a fancy cover for someone, instead of you can then get someone on a 3 months to 4 months cover, right? For the person that is being on maternity leave, saying this is just for that duration. You may need to have the person for maybe one extra month where they overlap, when the person goes 2 weeks before, so they can hand over, prepare the person, and then when they come back another 2 weeks so that they can take over. This is one of the things that we need to understand. It is a real reality of work, and it costs that an organization must be willing to bear, and absorb. So maternity leave is never a surprise, right? It is how we deal with it, that is the important thing. Okay. And that's going to be my sort of comment or advice about that, right? The TK facilities person was asking a question about retention of technicians, right? Now, see, the thing is there are certain kinds of organizations or industries, where employee turnover is high, and an organization that employs technicians is that kind of will be that kind of organization, right? Because if you hire, say, somebody who repairs generator, for example, right? What would that person be in 5 years time? Most likely somebody that is able to repair a more complex generator, right? So unless you can show them, you have that thing that says, if I keep you here, this is what you will become in 5 years time, and sell it to them, you are likely to continue to have that. So what you must do is to say to yourself, how can we find people to recruit very quickly, all right, in this environment? How can we source people easily? Number two, when you think about retaining them, all right, there's still things that you can do to keep them out. Yeah. So if you think about where do they go? When they leave, where do they go? Do they go and start their own thing, or do they go to another organization? If they find it very easy to go to other organizations, it means that there is really nothing differentiating your organization in your industry, and you want to work on that unique proposition for employees to stay with yourself, right? That's what you also want to work on. And say, when you stay with us, as opposed to going to our competitors, this place is always better. You need to sell that to them and make them to realize it. So I think that's one of the things that I'm going to say. And he also said, look, how can we very quickly build people into the kind of people that we want in this organization? That one, what you need to do is to have some sort of training and induction system. So define for yourself what you want those kind of people to look like, and say, what do you need to do? So what experience and encounter must they have in your organization that helps them to become that very quickly, and try and put that in place. Okay, so that is very important, right? Someone asked a question about criteria for salary increment. Typically, two criteria for salary increment, right? One is performance, yeah. So how well has the person performed, yeah? And before you get there, you then must be able to measure what they have done. And of course, before you also get to measuring what they have done, you have to be in a place where you can define what you expect them to do. And now you are going to reward them for it and communicate, all right? So that is very important. So that, in essence, is a performance management system. No matter how rudimentary it is, right? When you come to work Monday to Friday, what do I expect from you? How am I going to measure the fact that you have done it? And what is the reward for doing it? That is one. Number two is sometimes there is something that is called inflationary adjustment. Oh, the price of everything has gone up. The salary that our people cannot give them the same quality of life that it gave them 2 years ago. Because the organization have the capacity to make an adjustment, inflationary adjustment. If you do, then you make an inflationary adjustment and all that. Yeah. So basically, the commonest one is performance, right? And so you need to have a system for measuring performance, for tracking it, and of course for rewarding it. Okay, so that is that. Now, somebody asked about queries and fines. That is also tied to performance management. And there are people who are organizations that are very arbitrary in implementing queries. Every little thing is an email from the boss that says your head is not correct. You are hereby required to explain why disciplinary action cannot be taken against you, and all that. What needs to happen before you begin to do those things, right? Because what you are doing really is you are sanctioning bad behavior. But you need to define what is bad behavior, what is good behavior. and what level of bad behavior attracts what kind of punitive action, and how long must one person do the same thing before you tell them to go. And as you're defining that, you're also defining the one that is rewardable. Yeah. So your organization is not the organization that only sees the evil things that people do and never sees the good things that they do, right? So it must be clear. So just define it. That's what you are asking for in in um in 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 organizational management is called a disciplinary policy. That's what it is. So define what qualifies for what. So don't just arbitrarily wake up one day and say, oh, because you came late, we are deducting money from your salary. Because you spoiled something in the organization, we're going to make you pay for it. You need to predefine them and communicate them to people so it is not arbitrary, right? Someone says, how do you satisfy and unsatisfy staff? To be honest, after you have done everything, right? Sometimes you shouldn't be shy to let somebody go when their attitude and their behavior and their aspiration does not match the culture of the kind of organization that you're trying to create, right? You shouldn't have too much of a problem, letting people go that do not support the aspiration that you have or the vision that you have for your organization. Thank you. I hope that answers the questions that you have asked. Hello, Peter, are you there?
Sorry, I didn't know my mic was muted. Thank you very much. You have done an amazing work with the answers. I just want to bring some announcements up before we take the closing, final wrapping up. We've had in my own views, we've had a very interesting session today. So I would like to bring to our notice some other events that we need to watch out for. By this time, in 2 weeks' time, we'll be holding another webinar here again at PLLI Studios, and that time we'll be discussing optimizing debt for new businesses, precisely on August 7th, Sunday like this, but 4:30 p.m. We'll start earlier, 4:30 p.m. So we want to start looking at debts. We have an investment banker who is coming to demystify the concept of debt. They say you should not borrow, yet business owners are borrowing money for business. So we're going to be looking at how do you resolve the wrong debts that you are already into as a business owner, and how do you steer yourself off for that debt trap. You should be discussing on the role that debt should play rather in building a business in our time and in our environment, knowing the right kind of debt to incur, discovering the cost of debt versus the cost of equity. So we have an investment banker, Mrs. Tony Sonny. She's the founder, CEO, Emerging Africa Group. She'll be here on 7th of August to take that session. Also like to mention to us that PLLI as an institute will be launching its school, the main school of the School of Enterprise Development will be launching its first level school called the Spark. Spark course will be launching in September. From the first week of September, it's a 10-weekend course, and you have 10 Saturdays that will be covering topics like identifying business opportunities, starting a business, legal frameworks, strategy and planning, stabilizing your business, finding and retaining the right partners or right people, which is some of the things our speaker for this evening has been discussing, customer identification and market management, overview of costing, understanding the role of business, and of course, how do you develop products and how do you create, develop your business. We'll be deploying what we call the community learning approach, meaning that for each of those topics, you have more than one person that will take the topic, so that if you don't get it from one, you will get it from the other. It's not the regular thing you get in business schools. We will create what we call progress groups, that will monitor your progress as you move on. And for the people who are interested, we will have an industry internship program for those who are interested, so that as soon as we finish in the class. There is, within the week, for those who can create the time, there is an organization where you can visit and you go and see those things practical. So the internship program will run throughout the period of the 10-week course. We will be birthing new enterprises. We will help existing businesses fortify their system, but most importantly, we'll be vetting new enterprises that have proper structures. We have our lineup of speakers are world class, from Dr. Femi Johnson to Dr. Ngozi Onya to Dr. Biodo Adedipe, Mrs. Tony Sane, Mrs. Bisi Adeyemi, Mr. Tayo Dunsin, Mrs. Folusha Badamosi, Mr. Debo Motunde, Mr. Godman Akinlabi, who is the founder of PLLI and the pastor for the Elevation Church. He is going to be speaking as the founder. This is going to share the broad vision, but most importantly, he's a leadership expert, and he's going to be sharing with business owners that place of leadership in your business. We have Mrs. Julius Inya, a very senior HR expert, who will also be speaking. We have Mr. Babajide Moniz, who is the digital marketing, digital tech expert, Mr. Henry Bassi, a brand professional, and then we have someone who is also going to speak on customer service. So please prepare to register for this course. It's going to be in September, and the details for registration will be made available. Just stay with us. We still have 2 more webinar series to go. The one on August 7 and another one on August 21. But as long as we have your details with us, we will keep you posted. All right. Okay. So I'd like to give our speaker just 3 minutes to round up. He needs to run. So Mr. Chinji, can you give us a closing remark? I actually thought you would take one live question. So please, if anybody has a live question, quickly just signify and unmute and ask before he runs. All right. So your closing remarks based on everything we've discussed, why we await anybody that would, but please, everyone who registered would send the recording in 48 hours. You will get the recording. So that's not a problem. Okay, sir.
Okay, all right. So in terms of closing remarks, I hope that people can hear me. In terms of closing remarks, what I'm going to say is everybody needs to understand 3 things. Number 1, people are important to the success or the failure, to the success of the organization. Number 2, managing people, all right, is not something that you learn. It's not something that you do intuitively. It is important, to train for it as much as possible. And then the third thing is that leading an organization at whatever level is also something that is crucial for us to create frameworks for. And those are the things that help us, right, to be able to attract this kind of people, and also to retain them and move them from people who are just been recruited, to earn a salary, to people who are interested in the greater good of the organization. And you must communicate to them, help them to see themselves in your organization and the future of the organization. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. We have come to the end of, and if anybody has any feedback, any comments or question, this is the time to ask. We have just 3 minutes to shut down this webinar today. I'd like to thank everyone who has made it a date. Thank you for your time. And please stay with us. We'll communicate the details for the remaining webinars to you. You will get a recording in 48 hours. You will get a feedback form. Please help us send a feedback form. You can let's appreciate our speaker. You can send a digital clap, or you can unmute and clap. But that's where we draw the curtain for today. Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone who is connected. And we thank you, facilitator, Mr. Tunji Yola, for doing such a wonderful job on the topic. All right, see you all, and do have a fantastic evening while we enjoy the remaining videos. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We really appreciate the spirit, sir. Thank you very much.
Hey, this is Jesse Cole, America's Student Life and Leadership Coach, and I want to talk to you today about the difference between an employee and a partner. Recently, I had a meeting with a gentleman who had been on his job for about 12 or 13 years. I was sitting in his office for a couple of hours, and as I was sitting there, different people were coming in and out of his office asking him questions. Different people from different departments were coming to his office to ask him questions about, things that were going on throughout the workday. And as I began to observe this, I asked him, I told him, I informed him, I said, man, you are a brand. He said, what do you mean, Mr. Cole? I said, you are a brand. You've established yourself as a wealth magnet and a wealth resource. Everybody comes to you for answers. He was like, I never thought of it like that. And as I began to even process it even further, after I left his office, began to, ponder everything that transpired throughout that day, I realized that you can either look at yourself as an employee, or you can look at yourself as a partner, an employee or a partner. You can see yourself as filling out an application or filling out a contract. You can see yourself as filling out a memorandum of understanding, or you can see yourself filling out something that's going to just bind you to work. There's a difference between having an employee mentality versus a partner mentality. I want to share a couple of things with you that I thought about after I left that meeting, and I really hope that it adds value to your life. Number one, employees see hurdles, but partners see opportunity. Right? Employees see hurdles, but partners see opportunity. Just because it hasn't been done doesn't mean that it can't be done. We know there's always politics in the workplace. There's always politics in your school or wherever you are. There's always going to be some bureaucracy there. But just because it hasn't been done doesn't mean that it can't be done. Employees say, well, it hasn't been done, so I'm not even going to try to do it. Right? Partners say, you know what, it hasn't been done. I'm going to try to find a respectful way to see if this can be done, whatever it is, right? To add value to the workplace, right? Employees see hurdles, but partners or brands, they see opportunity. Number two, employees engage in a pouty talk, but partners engage in power talk. Employees engage in pouty talk, what's not been done, and I don't like this person, or I don't like my boss, or I'm not being done right. But partners engage in power talk. It's easy to talk about what's not happening or the deficiencies in your workplace, but true leaders, they create or they seek out solutions to problems. Right? I've been in workplaces where people were complaining all the time about what's not happening, or, if I was a boss, I would do this. Well, I'm like, why don't you have that partner mentality, have that boss mentality? No matter where you're working, you in your mind should have the spirit of the person that is your superior, and you should operate as a partner, as a brand, and not an employee. All right. Number three, employees go to work and wait for someone to tell them what to do, but brands or partners, they can create their own workflow. Right? You should always try to find a way to better yourself, or to increase your capacity, or looking for ways to challenge yourself within your scope of responsibilities. That's some good eating right there. Employees go to work and wait for somebody to tell them what to do, but brands or partners, they can create their own workflow. I really hope that helped you. Remember that what you want to become depends on your willingness to become it. Have a great day.